Hey everybody, welcome to the channel. Michael Noland here, and tonight we are going to discuss everything wrong with rock and roll in the year 2022. Now, for some of you, this video will be a culmination on several rants that I've supplied over the last 3 months. But there's new information here that I haven't covered in past videos, and in order to make my point, what I'm going to do is I'm going to cover mainly 7 artists that are basically destroying rock and roll. We'll be covering the artists and bands of Motley Crue, Kiss, Foreigner, as well as artists Bruce Springsteen, Bob Dylan, Paul McCartney, and yes, even Pantera. Now, first of all, I want it clearly understood that all of these bands, I believe, are valid bands. As many of you know, I'm not a big Kiss fan, but I do see them as a valid band who even belongs in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. An honor that evidently goes to Dolly Parton, by the way, but not to the band Foreigner. Now, I'm not talking about the current lineup of Foreigner when I speak about Foreigner. I'm talking about the original Foreigner, or at least the Foreigner that included singer Lou Gramm. In other words, the lineups that were responsible for the very hits the current band is playing for the most part. You know, in a recent interview, the original lead singer for Foreigner, Lou Gramm, said that at one point, here we go again, folks, Jan Wenner told Mick Jones that it would be a cold day in hell before Foreigner wound up in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. And when you think about the current band, with Mick Jones being the only original member left to the band, currently touring with them, if you can call it that, evidently he shows up every 3 or 4 shows and doesn't show up in the show until 45 minutes to an hour into the show. And evidently, the fans don't care. They're lining up for tickets. Now, in 2009, Mick Jones did record an album with these guys, so they do have an album with Mick Jones writing material with them, and we all know that was a move deliberately planned to give this lineup more validity than it really deserves, as far as I'm concerned. That release evidently included 3 CDs. The first was the new album. The second was remixes of basically all of their hits. The third was a live performance of them performing basically all of their hits. As far as I'm concerned, sneaky move, Mick. Well, in a brand new interview, Phil, their bassist, evidently now the spokesman for the band, has announced that not only does he back up the lead singer, evidently, there's been some criticism as to whether this guy should be lead singing for this band, even though he's been the lead singer for the last 17 years. But he also announced that the band was about ready to release a brand new album. So basically, here we have a band currently performing and touring on the strength of mainly Foreigner hits that none of them had anything to do with in creating. You say, oh, but Mick Jones is there. Really? If you think Mick Jones is still a part of this band, you might want to rethink that whole proposition, because he barely shows up in performances, and you don't know if you're going to see him in any given performance at any given time. You know what this reminds me of? This reminds me of George Lucas and when he sold his beloved Star Wars franchise. Ah, the word franchise. Are we seeing the beginning of an era of franchise bands? Bands that are passed on to new generations to perform legally under that band's name. Kiss has already replaced 2 of their members, so half of Kiss is not the Kiss that original fans fell in love with. On top of that, Kiss caught lip syncing at their performances. Now, you know I've covered the lead singer of Motley Crue, Vince. I'm not going to go into him anymore. If you're interested on my thoughts about him, take a look at my video about rock stars who need to retire. But I did cover the fact that his lead vocals are not sounding very good. But evidently there's a new video out that suggests that Tommy Lee may be playing to a click track. Now, I have no trouble with click tracks in the recording studio, but I have grown up on music where they needed a great drummer. That's one of the reasons why Ringo Starr was referred to as the human metronome back in the day. But tightening up a performance for a recorded piece is fine. But what I do have trouble with is when a band has to use a click track in order to get through their damned live performance. Now, I've seen this video and evidently there's a lot of debate. I'm telling you right now, as a musician, the man is using a click track. The click track starts before he's even down on the drum throne, and he's nowhere near that hi-hat when it begins. What a joke. And you know what? These guys aren't as cute as they used to be, but boy, they've got the women up on stage dancing just like these guys were still 24. I got news for you, fellas. You're starting to look like a group of dirty old men. When asked questions in interview, they answer often to female reporters, "What color are your panties?" With Vince being more gut than glory, I've had it with this band. And then I've talked about price of tickets to go see some of these monkeys perform. I'm disgusted with what Paul McCartney and Bruce Springsteen especially are charging for their shows, with Bruce Springsteen taking the cake and asking for $5,000 a ticket to see a man who's been a multi-millionaire, close to billionaire status, we'll get to that in a minute, guys, who has lived more years on this planet in multi-millionaire status than he ever did as a working class hero. And for those of you who have commented, well, this is mainly Bruce's team. Hey, Bruce is the boss. Bruce is the star. Bruce is responsible. McCartney is responsible for his gate. I don't care who their team is. I don't care what corporation is sponsoring their damn tours. They're the ones that have to answer the bottom line. And let's get back to BS. I mean, Bruce Springsteen. Again, I didn't even mention in the last video that he has recently sold his entire catalog for $500 million. Bob Dylan's done the same thing. I think all the members of Fleetwood Mac have done a similar thing. These are their legacies, folks. These are their children. They're selling their children before they all grow old and die. And let's get back to that whole idea of franchise bands. Evidently, Pantera's gonna get into the act. You go, but that's impossible. Dimebag Darrell was shot on stage, he was murdered, and Vinnie Paul is dead. That can't happen. Oh, but see, the two remaining members of the band, long after they had called it quits, it's been decades since this band has been doing anything. They've evidently gotten permission from family members of the passed away members as to who would be okay to replace them. Now, I'm not trying to cut Pantera down. They were a fine band for what they were. I mean, they started off as a glam band and then slipped into one of metal's many subgenres, and I wasn't that interested in their music. But they were a fine band. But think about this. If Paul McCartney and Ringo all of a sudden went insane and they proposed and got together with Yoko to choose a replacement for John and Olivia to replace George Harrison, the world would freaking laugh at them, folks. Why do bands like Pantera and Foreigner and Kiss My Ass get a pass? You know, it was in 2019, I was at the Sonoma County Fair. And you know who was playing at the county fair that year? Edison Lighthouse. Now, for all of you younger viewers, Edison Lighthouse is a band that's mainly known for one hit. And of course, that was their famous song, Love Grows. Now, this band sounded fantastic that day. And the day they were talking on stage, just like Foreigner, they were kind of indicating to us, the audience, that the guitarist was at least one of the members of the very original Edison Lighthouse recording. Later, I found out that not only was that not true, but that he didn't go back any further than the bassist and lead singer, who joined pretty early in the band's incarnations, but still a complete different incarnation from the recording of that hit. Both joining after the band was already fastly becoming an oldies touring band. But you know what? They sounded hot that day. I was dancing around, took a little footage, I enjoyed myself. But you know how much I paid to see them? $0. It was covered at the gate with me paying my general admission to the fair. Now, Lou Gramm has been quoted as saying that the new Foreigner is making 2.5 times, when adjusted for inflation, folks, more money than the original Foreigner ever made. A fairground act making millions? Good Lord. You know, it's with these clowns clogging and draining money away from the summer tours for newer, fresh-blooded bands that can't seem to get any radio play, whatever little radio play there is these days, because they're blocked off by pop acts that have taken over the entire music scene, some by just winning a damn singing contest. So I promised you a video that would cover everything wrong with rock. Of course, that promise did not include every band that was a problem with rock. We only covered 7 artists tonight. But it gets down to this. Here's the problem with the music industry today. Too much touring, not allowing people enough time to write new material. Almost nobody tours with a brand new album, except for some of the harder working rock bands that people who have done a bit of research know about. And by the way, an upcoming video, I'm going to be covering the top album and the top pop song of 2022 so far, and I've got to tell you, I am not impressed. You know, it's up to us, folks, both young and old, as concert goers. Are we going to continue putting up with this crap? You've got bands on cruise ships. How Disney can you get? All right, so that about covers the video for tonight. I had to get it off my chest. Videos coming up. My next Led Zeppelin Decoded video, I'm done writing it. I'll film that in the next few days, as well as some big announcements coming up for the channel very soon. You know, if you haven't subscribed to the channel yet, all you have to do is hit that subscribe to the tribe button, hit that top bell notification, and you too will be notified of all my future videos. For those of you who have shared my videos, thank you so much. You have been a big part of the growth of this channel. If you liked tonight's video, please consider giving it a thumbs up. That helps the YouTube algo demon better recognize the channel. And for some reason, the channel just seems to grow from that point. So any thumbs up by you is greatly appreciated. All right, folks, that covers my rant for the night. I'm Michael Noland. This is The Bottom Line, and I'll see you in my next video.